Shaman Oaks, exploring the rabbit hole.
Hey Peter, how are you doing?
Hi, Alan.
So, I just read your book. It's amazing. Heaven is beautiful. I got sweaty palms just listening to it. That thing should be made into a movie. Like, no joke, that was a great book.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I put my life into it.
But love it. I know you've probably told your NDE probably hundreds of times, but if you wouldn't mind recapping it for like my viewers, and then we'll kind of get into just a casual conversation.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. I was 21 years old, 19, and I'm going to tell it crisply.
Okay, beautifully.
1980, I was 21 years old. I went ice climbing in Western Canada and Banff Provincial Park. I was an outdoors guy, National Ski Patrol, been snow caving since I was a Boy Scout, mountain climbing, rock climbing, first time ice climbing. Had a lead climber who was experienced. We went up a world famous climb, maybe 500 feet, 3 pitches up, and made a mistake with my equipment to begin with. Thought that I could climb with an axe and a hammer at the same rate of speed as other people with a couple of axes, which turned out to be false. And so our climb was very slow. And by the time we reached the top of the pitch, it was sunset. Temperature dropped as the sun went down. Hypothermia set in immediately. We were in a desperate situation and knew it. Decided that we were going to either die trying to stay warm there, canoodled up against the mountain, or die trying to get off. And we decided that we would try to get off the mountain. And so it was a harrowing night, frostbite, hypothermia to the extreme. And on our last pitch, just before dawn, after fighting our way across the mountain all night, I succumbed to the final stages of hypothermia. We were clipped into the mountain on harnesses, on straps with iron pins and rings into the granite. We were off the ice. And Tim was to my left, my lead partner, my leading partner, and my friend. And my temperature soared on my skin, which basically meant that my core was flooding my extremities to prevent them from falling off. And it creates a false sense of heat, which, even though I knew better, having been trained as a first responder, I unzipped my coat and it's sub-zero out. And my temperature core dropped even faster. And I began to fall asleep. I'd wake up after having collapsed to the rock, try to pull on the stuck rope again and again, but I'd let go of one of the ends of the rope and the other was tied to me, and I couldn't free it. And to collect it would have meant climbing back up and likely falling 150 feet. So we left the rope as it was, and I tried to tug on it, but I kept falling asleep. I pulled myself back up this last time after falling asleep, and as I stood up, I got what's called tunnel vision. Peripheral vision began to fill in with black and a circle and faded to black very rapidly to out. And I was in darkness, but unlike falling asleep, I maintained my consciousness. You know, when you fall asleep, you lose your consciousness, but I knew that I was awake and I was in this darkness and I felt myself collapse, but I didn't feel myself hit the rock. And suddenly in front of me was a great expanse of even darker darkness that extended as far as I could see and as wide as I could see, and far, far in the distance. And I'd never seen anything like it. It's not just like standing on a wicked dark night looking out at the ocean on a starless, moonless night. It's like different than that. It's that plus times 1,000. And so way far, far in the almost infinite distance, I saw and I'm going to speak in metaphor now because I really don't have any other tools than that. So I saw like a pinprick of light that came rushing toward me that filled from a great distance, faster than the speed of light, and infilled the entire visual that I had. But it wasn't just light, it was like an amorphous intelligence that communicated directly to me without any sort of matter. There was no physicality to this. And it said to me without language, I'm taking you. And I resisted because I didn't know what was going on. I was, can't say I was frightened, but I was strongly resistant because I didn't understand the circumstance. And this thing rushed right to me and communicated, I'm taking you, and plucked me right out of myself and carried me up through the proverbial tunnel, but the tunnel was wide and narrow at the same time, like infinitely wide and small enough to contain us, but not one or the other. It was both. And this entity carried me, and I was comforted. I was unafraid. I was confused, but I was not lost. And I suddenly emerged into this greater infinite darkness that was also illuminated. So these two things at once, and the entity, the angel, vanished, and I was left alone as what I describe as an orb of consciousness that's 10,000 times bigger than my body. And I was completely content. My first reaction was, this is me. Now I remember. How did I ever think I was that thing? This is who I am. And I was I had no matter, no energy, no atoms, no molecules, no photons, no electrons, and that stuff. I was just consciousness, but it also contained all of my senses. So I was brain, I was thinking, I was eyeball and ear and sensories, but I was less Peter, and I could see in every direction at once. And there was like a portal opened in front of me if I had a front, which I didn't, but like a doorway or a gateway. But it opened up into this long arcing, infinitely arcing tunnel that was somehow inside of and separate from, but part of this greater eternity that I was in. And there was this flowing sheen that was transparent, I could see through, and translucent, I could see the sheen at the same time. And I, it was a flow, and I touched this flow with my self, my soul consciousness, and it was all life. It was all life of all the universe and all the universes and all life there ever was and will be. And it flowed into me, and I tell this like in a sequence, but this is a place of timelessness, which means all time and no time, all time in one space and no time whatsoever. So it's really hard to describe it. I choose to describe it sequentially, and if only for my own sanity. So I touched this thing, and it inflowed into me, and it called my name, but not Peter. It called the name of my soul, that in which I could hear the creation of my being from aeons ago. I could see the long tail of my existence, of my soul, which was not Peter, and I could see the very creation of myself as a, a photon that was wave and particle as part of the light itself, but separate and the same as, but distinct from. And I could see that I had other lives, but I couldn't see what they were, and I couldn't see whether they were sequential or uh, simultaneous. But I also knew that they weren't me, that the real me was the soul that contained them. They were little tiny, like toothpicks, stuck inside this much larger, uh, everlasting soul. And I heard um, my name called. I saw myself as creator. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I saw myself as creature, made even in my soul substance, in my consciousness, by creator who I could not see, who spoke inside me, who then showed me all of the pain that I'd given away in my entire life, from the point of view, life review. But mine, which is different than others, mine was I suffered all the pain I gave away in my entire life from the point of view of the people I gave it to. I intended to give it to, and I didn't intend to give it to. And I felt that. I felt their pain, and it turns out that all the pain that I gave them was about 10,000. I keep using 10,000 because it's like some huge unimaginable number that you multiply all the pain you ever gave away to somebody times, and I suffered all of that their pain plus times 10,000. Turns out that I gave it to me, and that they suffered a little bit. I suffered mostly, and it was juxtaposed to all my reasons for causing them pain. And the voice was saying inside me without sound, no gender, no language, I love you. It was showing me love. It was bringing me into love. It was expressing to me eternal love that was, it's unimaginable, incomprehensible. I love you. I've always known you. I've always known these things about you. I've known you since you were created. I've known the long tail of your soul. I know what you were like to be a human being in this life. I love you as you are. I made you. I've always known you. I've always loved you. And I was going through this suffering of all the suffering I gave away, but I was also being, and I call it my own hell. I created my own hell, like Jacob Marley and the Christmas, link by link. And I also judged myself as shameful, not because of what I had done, because it was also shown simultaneously that it wasn't my fault that I caused pain. That's a natural outgrowth of being a human being in this world. It's just the way it is. And every human being causes pain to other human beings and to themselves. And that's just the way it is. And that's a known thing by the divine. God knows this about us. And so I carried home to heaven with me all the love that had been given to me and all the love that had been given away, that I gave away is like a treasure. And somehow it helped me turn my inner eye to the holy divine, and was, I don't know, burned clean by the divine fire of purgative love. And then when I had no more things I did not need, it wasn't like they were bad. It was like, you don't need them, and here's how to get rid of them. And once they were gone, I was infilled with this combination of truth, joy, knowledge, bliss, understanding, compassion, hope, adoration, awe, paradise. The list is long, but they weren't all separate things. They were all one thing. And the one word that I would use to encapsulate it all, two words: beauty and love. Emphasis on the last, and it goes on from there. I mean, I could stop right there, or I could tell you how I came back and what happened next. But
I've always been curious of how long was that? Like, how long do you think you were gone, and how long did it take? How long did you feel like you were gone?
Well, I don't know either. I don't know either. I didn't have a watch on me, and I went to a place of timelessness. And so what that means, it could have been a second, it could have been 5 minutes. I don't know. And I didn't tell Tim, my partner, what had happened to me, but I was gone long enough that he believed I was dead. That's all I can say about it. And when I came back, I chose to come back. I was welcome to stay in heaven, but I chose to come back. And when I came back, he told me that he thought I was dead, that I had been dead. You've been dead. You were dead.
Oh wow. Okay.
If you die, I die, which is really was his point.
And well, can you talk about that part about how you were given a choice to come back?
Yeah, I said, once I was infilled infilled with oneness of being, this unity, I was still separate. Okay, I was, as Genesis says, like I was an image of the divine. I wasn't the totality of the divine, but I was definitely like the divine. I was an image of it, like a subgroup of it, of the same substance, but yet less than. And I hadn't gone through the tunnel. And I said, so, I haven't gone the secondary tunnel. All right. I haven't gone through the portal yet. Do I have to go? And God's like, you don't have to go. I said, well, I've got a reason to stay. My parents were suffering. My sister had run away and vanished from our life and broke my mom essentially. And in the instant of a thought, we were swept across the vastness of the universe and brought into the kind of in this dimension of this universe, but also outside of it. I could see all of Earth all at once, all mountains, rivers, streams, oceans, fish, in particular, and birds and animals and trees and plants and everything. But in particular, I could see human beings. And the human beings were 7 billion of us, and everyone was covered by a singular veil. The veil kind of trailed over everything in the world, and the human beings couldn't see outside the veil, and which is what I could see. And the voice said to me, in the way that I love you now, now you know I've always loved you and will love you. And this love is, I can't tell you how rich it is. It's any words utterly fail. It's all of the universes all put together into one black hole, like crushed out. That's how much, and that's not even enough. And um, and no one could see it on Earth. They were all going about their daily lives, being utterly beloved, in particular by the divine, just like me, just like I knew that I was, and that I knew that all because I was healed and well and without suffering. I didn't have a body to suffer. I didn't have any suffering at all. And the voice said, "In the way that I love you now, I've always loved you, and I love everyone in particular, including your parents, whose faces I could see in particular in the time of the world." And I could see in their souls and their faces their suffering. And I knew that from the duration, from the time at which I died that night to the time at which they died, their suffering would be increased exponentially. Two kids lost. And so, even though I knew that all would be well for them when they died, I chose to not let them go through that. And so I said, can I come back here? If I go back to life, can I come back here? And the voice said, yes, but we want you to stay, but you can go back. And I said, well, I can go back and help my parents. They won't suffer as much. I choose to live my life. And the voice said, you won't live your life, and send me back.
One, how convinced are you that it was real and not just like some hallucination?
It was self-evidently so to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to turn out there was some kind of biological thing in my brain, but that's not the way I experienced it. It's more real. It was more real to me than anything I've ever experienced in my life before or since.
Right. And I love in your book how you told your congregation that you don't have faith. Can you explain? Can you say that part real quick? Why you don't have faith in God?
Sure. So for your audience, I'm an ordained clergy person, and I served congregational churches in New England for quite a number of years, decades. And the day I came back from my death, the moment I came back, all faith was erased, all belief was erased, not just in religion, but all belief and all culture. It's completely. I guess I look at it like an anthropologist might, all culture from kind of the outside. Oh, that's nice that you've got that gray sweater hoodie on. I got one like that too, so I can fit in. Um, so and I do actually have one. And so I came back with no belief in culture or religion or in God, because to me, God is not a thing to be believed in. I know God is real. I know where I'm from. I know where I'm going. But more importantly, I know that I'm known by the knower of all. And I can't ever turn away from that. It's not something that ever shuts off. And even when I'm asleep, it's still going. And so in addition to having no belief and no faith, I don't have any doubt. I am doubtless and completely unafraid of death because I know where I'm going.
Yeah, to me, that's one of the most beautiful things about people that have had the near-death experiences. They just come back just knowing, and I think that's such a great gift. But why do you? Or I love in your book you say that it's like you don't believe in trees and birds, like you know they exist. You don't have to have faith in them or believe in them. You know they exist.
Right, exactly. So I don't have to believe that this glass exists and that water exists. You know, we take it for granted. We know it exists. That was the same way, a similar way to which the divine presented itself as self-evidently so. And the reality, you know, the Hindus talk about Maya, illusion. It's it's like living in an illusion for me. That this is the place that I have to I struggle. So you say it's quite the blessing to know, and it is. Okay, I there's a lot of benefits, but there's deficits too. I live non-attached to pretty much everything. I mean, sure, I have likes and dislikes, and when my favorite mug smashes to the floor when I drop my coffee in the morning and the handle breaks off, yeah, I'm like, I had that mug for 30 years. Um, but it's not real. I know it's not real. I know it's all transitory and temporary, and that I am too.
Okay. I think it's a very important thing that a lot of people talk about when they experience this as they come back. I don't know if depressed is the right word, but a longing to go back.
Yeah, those are yeah. I did in a lot, and yeah, depression. I mean, I had depression that was physiological. I mean, it developed. I longed to go back so much that I immediately regretted my decision.
Wow.
By the
Yeah.
time I started having the mental capacity to consider what I had done and the choice I had made, I made a huge mistake coming back. All I wanted to do was go home. It's like living in a two-dimensional black and white world here
Right.
compared to multicolor, multisensory VR immersion there. It's and so once you've been in that place, coming here, as beautiful as it is, and I live in an extraordinarily beautiful place on purpose, so that I can get as close to beauty as I possibly can. But even that, it's just like, oh well, you know, that's really pretty, um, but not the same as ultimate divine beauty.
Yeah, I love how you said also that like sunrises are ugly. Are they still ugly, or were they just ugly for a while?
They were ugly for a while. There was well, the first year was very difficult. The second morning, the first morning we woke up. Um, was it that very first morning? Geez, the very first morning after the climb, we drove and we slept that night. And then the next morning, when I woke up after totaling the car and having to hitchhike back to Bozeman, with all my gear, Tim took a bus, and with other gear, I watched the sunrise, and it was really beautiful, but not at all. It was like watching a cartoon. It was like being in a cartoon. Only I wasn't just in the cartoon, watching the cartoon. I was the cartoon. Like my body was the cartoon, and my thoughts were the cartoon, and all of my senses were the cartoon, and the cartoon was outside of me and inside of me, and it was super confusing. And all my soul wanted was to be back in the oneness of being. And now here I am in this broken apart place where all the love and the beauty and the truth and the hope and the joy are, it's all fragmented here. But so is everything else. It's not just those things. Everything is fragmented here. Everything is not in union with the divine. The light pervades all things at all times, but it's still fractured here. I live in a fractured body in a fractured world, and all I wanted was wholeness and oneness, which I know I will have again because it was promised to me.
A lot of people ask, well, why does good things happen to bad people? But you seem to kind of describe that in that the reason this world only exists because of brokenness. Like if it was perfect, then it would be one. It would be oneness. It would be God.
Yes,
Did I say that correctly?
you say that correctly, and what that means in a practical sense is that life can suck, and it's kind of built that way, which is why it's also built that way that human beings naturally hurt each other because it's all fragmented. We're even love, this great gift that we have, that is the binder of us all from generation to generation, and brother to sister, and mother to father, and all these kinds of things. Um, Even that's broken. An example of that is, I fall in love with somebody in college, and I fall in love with someone else in college at the same time, and now I get two women I'm in love with, and now I got to choose between two of them, and they both love me, and I choose one, and the other one hates me.
Right.
And so, so it becomes very gray in that area. But that's true about the whole kit and caboodle, and it's not just humanity and Earth. It's like from the Big Bang, from the quantum level on up, the whole thing is less than unity. And so the whole place, scientists talk about entropy. It's like entropy, except for there's also unity. There's also anti-entropy. There's this oneness of being where there is no decay because there's only perfection. And in that only perfection is where our origin is, where we're from and to where we're going. And we're passing through this spatial, temporal existence of fracturedness. Now, you can ask, why do we have to go through this? Why are we doing this? And there's lots of answers to that. People say, oh, it's the school, I'm here to learn. And yeah, maybe that's true. But when I was dead, anything I needed to know, I knew instantaneously, and not just like a little bit of it. I knew everything about whatever I wanted to know. All the knowledge about one subject instantly downloaded into me. And I didn't carry that back with me. I haven't carried back 98% of what I knew on the other side because it doesn't fit in here. But one thing I do remember is that I was curious about the structure of the astrophysical and cosmological structure of all of the universe, from the smallest. At that point, I didn't know quarks existed, but I did when all of the information was loaded into me.
Right.
Uh, does that make sense, or am I?
It does, but so what would you say is the purpose of life? Do you have a theory?
Love.
Just to love?
I think it's the light seeing itself. I think it's love loving itself. I think that it's fun for God to create sentient beings who have autonomy, who can make choices and decisions. Um, but I don't really know that. That's just a guess. What I do know is love is the thing.
Okay.
Love was the thing there.
Well, how did your NDE change how you view God? Because I know you were religious beforehand, and you're still, an ordained minister.
I
But
work in religion.
but would you say you're more spiritual now, or do you think there's one religion that's more right than the others? Like, what's your thoughts on organized religion?
I think organized religion has served both a beneficial service to all of humanity and a detriment as well. I don't think it's clear cut. I think that in the mystical end of the churches and the synagogues and the faiths, people like Rumi or Julian of Norwich or Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, people like that who are on the mystical end of things, um, tend to be more directly connected to the divine, right?
Yeah.
So, but on a normal human interactive way, religion provides some sort of bulwark against humans' inhumanity to each other. I mean, at its best, don't murder, don't rape, don't steal. At its worst, sack the city, loot it, and rape everybody.
Right.
Murder everyone at the sword because they're infidels. So it's both those things at once. But God had no religion. If God had a religion, it was love. But God has no religion. And so when I work in religion, I guess I'm spiritual. I say I'm spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
but but that implies. I think that sometimes implies belief, and 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 I so I land more in the realm of calling myself a mystic, but I don't of mystical experiences, which I think a lot of people have them, They call them spiritual experiences, but I can help you define that if people are interested. Um, but I think it's a quantitatively different thing to know the divine than to believe in the divine. And so by knowing by knowing the divine, I know that religion serves a purpose, but it's not necessary because everybody's built in with a connection to the divine inside them.
That's amazing. So, what do you tell people that I guess are too stuck on, say, one religion and think? So, I'll say like my parents are very Christian, very conservative, and it's like if it's not straight from Jesus, then you're going to hell, sort of thing. Do you say anything to those sort of people, or do you like?
I let them be who they are.
Okay.
If that's what they want to do, because that kind of Christianity, that still works for people.
Right.
And it gives them form and shape to their faith, gives them structure. It orients them at its best towards love, at its worst towards bad things, like every other religion. But it can, like, if I'm going to include all religions, I have to include them too.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you just don't, but you don't judge.
I don't judge.
Basically, all what Jesus said to do. So
right, and I don't engage. I mean, because biblical thinking is this closed loop. You can't bring the way science advances is that new information comes in. The great thing about science is it doesn't take any belief. You don't have to believe to make it because it's real. And because new information comes into science, we readjust our thinking based on new information. Well, no new information comes into the circle of the Bible. So, those people who are literalists really believe in Adam and Eve and the 8,000-year-old planet are not going to, dig the 13 billion-year-old universe and the evolution of a whole bunch of different hominids into the current creature we call Homo sapien. Uh, you know, that's So, and if they want to be there, that's fine. Just don't force me to think that.
right. So with saying that, like people that are scared of hell, what would you tell them?
Winston Churchill, when you're going through hell, just keep going. Um, right. So when I went through hell, and I went through a hell of my own making, I didn't know how long I was going to be there because I was in timelessness. I didn't understand what was going on. All I knew is that I was feeling pain, but I was also being told I was loved. I just simply chose the love. I chose the love. I looked to the light. And I know that not everybody goes through hell. And maybe that was because I was raised a Christian, that was my experience. Um, I, I expect to go back through it again. And I'm happy to go back through it again because I know what lies on the other side of it. And what it really did for me was unweighted me. I didn't have enough space inside the orb of my consciousness to contain the oneness of being. I had too much junk in the way. And this kind of burned the junk, cleansed me of the junk that was taking up space, was unneeded. It wasn't so much that it was bad, it was more that it was like, what are you carrying this junk around for? Let me help you get rid of it.
Right. And by hell you mean like your life review, and in a sense meaning the how you had to feel all the hurt you gave others.
Yes. And it was a lot.
Yeah. And do you think there's any way to avoid that? Like, can you ask for forgiveness, or can you like right your wrongs while you're still alive? Because that's one thing I'm not looking forward to.
I think righting your wrongs while you're still alive.
Hmm.
Jesus talks about forgiving 70 times seven. Or he's like when you're on your way to the judge and and you got this guy who's suing you, make up with him on the way. Get forgiveness before you go. And so I think that that's simply living a loving life. I think that forgiveness and mercy are forms of love, and so is humility. It's an acceptance of someone else's um, anger, and that's not quite right. Humility is the acceptance of um, someone else forgiving you,
Hmm.
so forgiveness is just another form of love. And when I was dead, okay, so I was born again speaking in tongues, charismatic Christian, backsliding, acid dropping, pot smoking, meditating hippie. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but I was also born again, speaking in tongues Christian, charismatic, and I was forgiven after I was dead.
Right.
That's really where it happened.
Okay. And everyone can be forgiven, right? Even
Everyone is
Hitler.
utterly, absolutely, every single sentient being is absolutely, utterly beloved by the divine. And um, parents, that's my, you hear parents say, or you read about it in a book, that's my special child. That's the child I love the most. That's
Right.
the one that he's my beloved son. You know, I was God's beloved son, but so was every other guy, and every woman was God's beloved daughter. And it was in particular most special, every single one. And so you can't generally have two favorites, because you have one favorite, but that's not the way it works over there. Everybody is the favorite. Everybody is beloved. Um, Nobody's left out.
Would you say that you're no longer afraid of death?
Oh, I don't just say it. I am not afraid of death, and I died I came back saying I'm not afraid of death. People were like, yeah, 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 whatever. But in 2015, I had a heart attack and I died. And on the way out death's door, that's like, I'm, hey, I'm really not afraid. I guess I was right. I'm not afraid. Because it felt like I wasn't afraid,
Right.
but I didn't know until it really happened that I really, truly wasn't. Because I really do know where I'm going.
So I've talked a lot about psychedelics on this channel. Can you consider a psychedelic experience spiritual or mystical?
I think yes. I think it depends on the experience, but I think yes. My When I was a high school student, I took a couple of hits of microdot, purple microdot, which I was told was mescaline. I was only supposed to take one. I took a double dose or maybe even a triple. It all kind of crumbled into my fingers, and I put it in my mouth, and I had this monstrous experience in the winter on a hillside on my skis,
Wow.
where suddenly God was utterly present all around me, waving in the trees. Everything was erupting God all around me, and it was kind of frightening, frankly. I went with it, but it was unexpected. And then, later on, before my near-death experience, I had several other psychedelic experiences, but that was the one that wherein I touched God the deepest. But every single time I took it, it was more sacramental by nature of the experience, not by my choice. Then, like, I didn't choose it to be sacramental, it just was.
Right.
Um, but I've been following what's going on at NYU and at John Hopkins, and I just finished reading twice How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. We watched the new film, the documentary, Fantastic Fungi, about psychedelics, I've and I had a buddy who was in this job. I got into this and I hadn't dropped acid in decades. Okay,
Yeah.
so I got into this because a buddy of mine, a minister, contacted me. Actually, a guy I didn't know, and he said, "Can I meet with you and talk with you? I had this experience." So it turns out he was in the John Hopkins study, and they with a heroic dose. They gave him an heroic dose, and they masked him and they put these earphones. And they got clinicians in the room, and they done 5 or 6 hours of background study with him in preparation. It's serious science, and he had a non-dualistic experience that radically changed his understanding of his faith. So here's this man of faith who believed in the divine, in Jesus Christ, and now he's like, no, oneness of being is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and when he told me this, we were sitting in this coffee shop, and I'm like, I was a little skeptical. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then I, got the book and I read it twice, and I watched the movie, and I've done more research, and I've done more reading. I read about it all the time. I've talked to other people. Um, it it can be. It can eliminate the duality. It can eliminate the ego, and it can bring you into a changed understanding of your position and the reality of the world on a permanent basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a mystical experience. And when I say mystical experience, I mean, according to William James, varieties of religious experience. It's transient, you don't make it happen, happens to you. It's passive, I'm sorry, it's transient, has beginning and end. Sorry, I got it all messed up. It's transient, has beginning and end. It's passive, you don't make it happen to you. It happens um, as a result of some external force that applies to you. You just like it does to you. It's ineffable. You can't talk about it. It leaves you with a knowledge on your soul. So transient, passive, ineffable, noetic. And mystical experiences that come as a result of hallucinogens seem to be to to do that.
By 100%. So I think I first got into near-death experiences, and then I was really into it, and I wanted to have one for myself because I had faith. I grew up with faith, and I lost my faith, and then I read a book by Rick Strassman called DMT: The Spirit Molecule. So I took some DMT, hoping to have some sort of near-death experience. I collapsed into a ball of light, went through a tunnel, met with another ball of light that I immediately recognized from before I was a human. And she like showed me around this landscape that was like she was creating for me and taught me lessons. And the reason I asked how long you felt like you were gone, I felt like I was gone for months and I was only gone for 10 minutes. And I still, like that happened 7 years ago, and I still think about it pretty much every day. Like one point I asked her, or I started complaining in my head because I had the telepathic communication the same way I hear a lot of near-death experiencers have. And I just thought started complaining in my head about something that I wanted to do in my life, but it was going to take too long. And she just looked at me and she goes, "What is time if you live through multiple eternities?" And I was like, whoa, holy hell, like what is multiple eternity? I never even had that concept in my mind. So I woke up from this, or I came back from this experience, like just changed. But in the back of my head, there's always that little, well, you did smoke something. It was a substance. Was it real? Is there a chance that my brain made it up? I don't know.
Same question NDEs ask.
But it was
Same question.
more real than real, like you say. It's like
Right.
I can still picture it. It's not like a dream. I can still see parts of it in my mind just as vivid as the day that happened. And I guess like also what you said in yours is that you were shown a lot, but when you come back, it's like it's erased. And that's the same thing. Like I've met God a couple times, and I come back from it going, sorry, my language, holy shit, that was amazing, but well, I can't remember what it was. And you just know that you had an amazing experiences, but you're not allowed to remember the details sometimes.
Yes, because I don't think the brain has the capacity to hold that information.
Yeah.
And but I think the soul does. I mean, I had to ask myself early on, how do I remember my death if my brain wasn't there?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, where's that knowledge stored?
Right.
And so I reached the conclusion that it was stored in my soul brain, which isn't physical at all.
Just much
And
bigger.
so my soul is much bigger, right? And it has more capacity, and it interfaces with my human brain. But the human brain is so puny, it doesn't have the trunk for the data to flow in. It's not big enough, and it doesn't have the capacity to hold the information, and it doesn't have the juice to process it. It doesn't have any of those things, and so only a trickle gets through, and the trickle that gets through is then having to be translated into a usable form. So you know it, but you can't say it, which is why it's ineffable. And when you do say it,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds weak. I met God. God changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then what becomes important there is the life that you live.
Right.
And so the evidence of your experience is shown in the way that you live your life. I mean, and that's true of all my near-death experience friends. They've all gone through a radical change as a result. I did. I came back an entirely different person, same personality, same character traits, but I am not the same guy. I I behave differently. I make different choices. I change the course of my life. Um, every day I make choices that other people wouldn't make.
And then when a lot of people say when they come back from a near-death experience, they have, you know, they feel more psychic, or that they hear dead people, or they're a healer. Do you have any sort of those, what I like to call superpowers?
I do. I've had a bunch of different types. One of the things that happened that was unusual is when I came back. I worked with plants. I was in grad school, in divinity school, but I worked in a garden center, installing perennial and annual flower beds in the homes of wealthy coastal people, and caring for plants inside of corporate buildings. But
Okay.
I could hear the plants when they needed water. I could hear them with my ears.
Wow.
And it was a like a high clicking sound that was annoying.
Hmm.
And when I watered them, they stopped. That's a weird thing. I've seen the dead.
In
I've
real life,
had.
with your eyes?
Uh, I came back with a single eye. When I was dead, my whole self became a single eye, and I came back with that. And so, even though I have these two eyes, and I've seen the living light of the divine in the eyes of others, and I can see it as a shimmer around people, and I've seen it with my physical eyes like a bar in between someone's nose and forehead, illuminated like the light I see there is the same light that's in me,
Hmm.
but I don't just see it with my physical eyes. I see it with my whole self. So I feel it and I sense it. So when you feel someone's prana or their chi or their, polarity, you know, the that's sort of the same in the same realm. To me, I feel the essence of their being, feeling a person's chi, feeling a person's um, prana is like touching their soul and seeing their light. And so that came back with me immediately.
Okay.
But it's hard to talk about that in normal conversation when you're 21 years old, or even up to 40. Oh, I see your aura, man. Talk about, losing credibility in
Right.
the intellectual world. And I come from a very intellectual world, rational. I know I was a born again speaking in tongues guy, but I see the contradiction. But also, I'm very analytical and systematic and practical and science oriented. So I can be both, right? I'm vast. Um, to bastardize the great American poet whose name I can't think of, Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman. Um, so superpowers, see the dead. I live dislocated in time. I slip in and out of time. I see the future before it happens all the time, like right in front of me. Like not, oh, the plane's going to go down in Ethiopia. No, it's more like I see my own future. I see everything that I when I was dead, I saw all the choices I was going to make,
Wow.
but not
Okay.
like fated, but like I saw 10 billion choices. I saw them all. I saw how they all interlinked, and then I kind of chose this path through all of these potential choices with each individual choice and as I make. And so I'm on a narrower path than all these other ones that I saw. But even every single choice I make, I see that I made it before.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I
I
saw.
know it's hard to grasp.
So lately, sometimes when I meditate, I kind of start reaching this other kind of world, it feels like, and it's like overwhelming. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the other side, or the vastness or the bigness of your experiences?
Yes, sometimes. Not in meditation generally, but when I've had other mystical experiences where I've been uh, more classically raptured out of my body and brought into various heavens where I've been shown aspects either of a combination of myself and the essence of what it is to be a human being in relationship to the divine. And so, for instance, I was in, I practiced Kundalini yoga. And so I'm in grad school. It's like 3 years after I'm in downward dog, and suddenly I'm plucked out of myself, and I'm my astral self, my soul and spirit combined, is carried by the same angel who is amorphous and doesn't have, I could describe it as a winged creature with multiple faces, but it was none of those things. Um, and I was placed in this containment inside of a heaven, a much vaster heaven, where I was protected and able to be present there because I was like in this containment unit, this orb, and I saw myself in comparison to the infinite Almighty, that which is creates all and is almighty and all powerful and omniscient. And I saw myself as an astral self, as a human being in comparison to perfection. I saw myself as utterly imperfect, and I was in awe, which is a word that means wonderment and fear. It was awful, full of awe, and
Oh wow.
right, and
Yeah, I like
so
that.
it wasn't it wasn't like I was afraid of the divine, but the power was so much bigger than me. I was so small. As the sailors say, the ocean is so big and my boat is so small.
Right. That's a great analogy, being on the ocean and just being overwhelmed by how large it is.
And you're in a dinghy and you don't have any, and one oar's broken and you don't have anything to bail with. That's good. It's
Yeah.
like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting the chills from that. Wow. Yeah, that's perfect. What are your thoughts on reincarnation or past life regressions? Have you ever done any of those?
I have not done past life regressions, and I'm sure that I've had previous lives. I'm not so interested in my previous lives. I know lots of people are. I Every time I think about a previous life of pursuing that kind of that path, I wonder how much time I would spend on it, what I would gain out of it, because I'm examining another human life. It's just I'm not really. I'm after my soul. I'm after the oneness of being. I'm after home. I'm not after this existence of this plane of existence. And so, if people want to do that, that's totally fine. But as for me, if I'm ever going to get off this wheel, if this is a wheel, the only way is going to do that. I'm going to do that is by focusing on the one thing. And by focusing on the one thing, I might gain enough of the other things to be able to function here. But if I focus on the other things, I'll miss the one thing, and I don't want to do that. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's the only reason I got into them, is basically to try to prove to myself that there was life after death. But once you know there's life after death, like, what's the point?
What's the
Because,
point? It's just another
yeah,
life. It's not
yeah,
the after part.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so what do you think is, I guess, the purpose of all of this? You said multiple heavens? Like, do you think, not the purpose of all of this, but say we live this human life, or we live multiple human lives? Do we Are we just trying to get close? Is it like Buddhism, or we're trying to become back closer to God? Or do you think that there's other worlds that are different dimensions that we go and live as well, with like lessons that we learn? Or what are your thoughts?
I think all of those things.
Okay.
I think that there are multiple. First of all, I think there are multiple universes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one thing. Um, I think that humanity's not the only sentient creature, and the bazillion galaxies and all the star systems. So that's another thing. So there are all these other worlds, but I also think that there are other heavens, dimensions, if you want to call them that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they are layered. This is my experience. Okay, and this I can only speak for myself. That I shucked my body, I shucked my astral self. I was pure consciousness of being, and I could see that I was not the totality of the oneness of being, but I saw that I came from it, and that it told me it would not consume me, but it wanted the all of me. And so I think that I think that ultimately some people are afraid of losing their self. And I was too. I was, like, you're not going to consume me was my big battle for 40 years. I'm not going to let you consume me.
Right.
But really, who's talking there? It's my ego talking there. And that's going to be consumed the day that I die. It turns to dust. And so for me, the pursuit of the oneness of being is about unity. And the mystical experience, the sequential mystical experiences that I've had that predated my my first near death experience and post-dated it, have sent me on a trajectory of targeting unity, the unitive state of being where all sense of my differentiation is obliterated. And because when you're inside the immensity of the all love there is nothing lacking, not even self.
Wow. Okay.
And I've tasted it, and because I've tasted it, I want it. um, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. Do we have to go through lots of lives? People tell me yes. I mean, I don't know if I don't want to come back here again, but if I have to, I will. I feel like I'm like a twice over bodhisattva. I've twice chosen to come back here to help my family. People would like, not like the world, but like
Yeah.
my mom and my dad and my granddaughter, very practical, individuated. But I don't want to come back here again. What the heck? Why, when there's so much beauty on the other side and all knowledge, yeah, no, I don't. If I don't have to, I won't.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. What are your thoughts on, I guess, then synchronicities? Like, do you think that they mean something? Do you think that it's like a God's wink? What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think they're winking. God's winking. But I also think that it's much more complex than we think it is. So imagine that there's 7 billion people with, however many seconds they have in a day and all the choices that they make. All these things are intermixing, and that's just on our planet, making all these choices are bumping up against each other. So the whole system is, oh, that was meant to be. That was meant to be. I'm meant to be here. Well, you are here, and all these choices that you made and all the other people made, that's how you got here. And from my point of view, because I saw all these paths that I could have taken when I was dead, and it was like looking at the bottom of a large cable, fiber optic cable, made up of many fiber optic cables. So it's like this big, huge cable with lots of little ones inside, and only they intersected everywhere, all the way along the way. And I got to choose to enter into one entry portal, and then made choices as I went, and kind of wound my way through this ongoing cable of options. And every step along the way feels like it's the right step for me to take, but really, I could have entered in any one of those and all of them would have been right. So no matter kind of basically whatever choice you make, it's always the right choice. Might not be the good choice, but it might, right? Because you
Yeah.
make bad choices, but it puts you where you are, and it creates your fate as you go along. Um, so that kind of,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I've always, or it's kind of what I've figured out, or kind of what it seems to be the case. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around that there's no wrong choices. But I've heard that over and over again. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
yeah. Except for it's you can think of. I don't know that there's not any wrong choices. I think that there are only right choices because we create our fate as we go along. You made that choice, that's the one you have. There are definitely bad choices, like the kid who sticks his his knife into the electric socket. That's a bad choice.
Yeah.
There's a young woman in our town who made a bad choice 2 weeks ago in a car, underage driving, and she's going to pay for that for the rest of her life. One choice, bad choice. Can't blame her for it. Don't want to judge her for it, but And then she's living this life that she will exit from eventually, because we all do. And that's really the saving grace of it all, is that death is real, and death um, launches us to further along the journey and frees us from the prison of our corporeality and all that comes along with that.
What is your stance on, not stance, but how do you, people that worry about someone in their life that's committed suicide, or people that are thinking about committing suicide, what would you tell them?
I think that despair is a real disease, and I think that it kills people. I think depression kills people. I think that cancer kills people. The coronavirus is killing people. Most people I know who are depressed or who are in despair don't choose that any more than they choose to get the virus. That's the way that their biology and their brain becomes hardened somehow and functions in this self-deprecating tape loop of darkness that's real to them. And I understand why they would take their lives, but I also know that whatever the pain is they have on the inside, suicide then takes that pain. And my cousin, she 3 months ago killed himself. And he's not the first death in my family like that or among my friends. So this is real to me, and he did it in a particularly brutal way. Um, and he took his pain and he gave it to everyone else in the family and all the people who loved him. And you could think about it, when we mourn for people and we have church services where everybody gathers together for the funeral, and we cry together, we sing hymns together, and there's like this ritual. We're all sharing the burden of suffering. We're sharing the burden of the pain of the people who are grieving, and we're also grieving at the same time for all the grief we have. So we share the burden of the pain. That's not dissimilar to a person who ends life by suicide, distributing their pain to their people who love them to care and share the burden, to carry and share the burden. But it's really painful and awful. Do they go to hell? Um, I, when I was a young pastor, this is after my near death experience, and I kept it a secret. Okay, so nobody in the church knew, because it's kooky. Okay, so I'm visiting this old woman in the hospital, which is part of my duties, and she had some sort of surgery, kept her in the hospital for 3 weeks. Unusual, 3 weeks is a long time. And so in my third visit, I show up. My second visit, by this time she trusts me. She tells me about her son who died by suicide 18 months before, and she was devastated. So first visit, she gets comfortable. Second visit, she tells me the truth about her pain. And, I'm trying to console her, but I can't really tell her what I know. So I come back on the third trip, and she says to me, "Oh my God, I've been waiting for you." Because I go on Thursdays. She's like, "Today's Thursday. I'm going to see the minister." I get there, and she says to me, "Last night I had a dream. And in my dream, it was a vivid dream. And my son, he came to me, and I knew it was him. And I could think, and I could move in the dream, and I could communicate with him telepathically. And he turned to me, and he communicated to me love and wellness. And I know that he's okay. I know that he's alive. I know that he's okay." And so then now suddenly she's completely unburdened by his choice. She still grieves, right? But she's not fearful for him anymore for the sake of his soul, because now she knows. She says that's a mystical experience. She didn't cause it. It had a short duration. It left her with knowledge. She shifted from belief in the afterlife or hope in the afterlife to knowing that her son is living in the afterlife, and it lodged in her noetically. So even though when she says it, it never really carries the power that she feels inside herself from that day forward. And so I've dealt with a lot of suicides. Like, I'm a minister, and so every time there's a suicide in my town, I'm not every time, but often enough, I'm involved. And so I've witnessed up close the distribution of pain, But I also had a long conversation with a Dakota elder from Pine Ridge Reservation, and in his culture, he told me that suicide is, oh, that was his time to die. Oh, cancer's your time to die. The kid got hit by the car. It's his time to die. You could say the kid died young, but really, you don't know that. And I started thinking about that. It was his time to die. So maybe it was his time to die. It creates a lot of suffering in the world when there's suicide, and I don't advocate it. Okay, for that reason, but I also understand why people make that choice.
Right. And do you think, well, when they go to the other side, that they have to feel that pain that they distributed times 10,000, like you said?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know, and I know that I did, and I'm okay with having to go back through that again because I know it's on the other side of it. And even if they do have to go through that pain, even if they do, love is all there is. Love conquers all. All these trite, hallmark sayings. Love conquers all. It's true though.
What do you say to people that say that the near-death experiences are like so varied? Why are they so varied? Is it based on your belief that when you go to the other side, or yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we don't know yet. I think that this is a new enough phenomenon that's being examined for the first time in the history of the world in such numbers. So we don't have enough data to understand it, but I can speculate a little bit, and I tend not to speculate much about things like this, but I've thought about this. I think that some of it has to do with our coming back. Our so our brains are educated, acculturated, socialized, biological functioning systems that have certain capacities and concepts that are in them for understanding experience on a regular basis. So when we come back, it goes through that filter. That's the first thing. So once it's in the filter, um, it uses the concepts it has available to it to process the information. Okay, that's one. That's only half of it. The other half of it, I do think that your belief system impacts it because I think that God approaches each of us in life and in death in ways that make us comfortable. So that because it's about compassion. And if I am frightened of the divine, that doesn't really help me a whole lot.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of the best I can do with that. We don't really know yet.
That's a fair answer. I never like it when people say that they know something for the most part, because if you haven't experienced it, yeah, you shouldn't say you know.
Well, how do you know if you don't know?
Exactly.
It's a known unknown.
Yeah,
I know that I
I
don't
like
know.
that. I love that. No, so I was gonna say, or I like that you are a chaplain, so you work with the dying on a regular basis.
I
Or
have. I
you
have.
have. Okay.
Yeah.
And something that I've always found fascinating with those or shared death experiences. Have you ever experienced a shared death experience?
I have been present for them, yes. When I was a pastor, I was in the hospital with a lot of dying people. And sometimes I'd be in the room and the person on the bed would say, oh, Joe, have you come for me? And I'm dramatizing here, but suddenly grandma sees grandpa in the room, and the nurse says, I see him too. Now, I haven't seen that, okay? But I've been present when other people have. Um, I did have, let me think about this for a minute. About 3 weeks ago, an old parishioner of mine, a dear friend, who and her family became friends. She died of cancer, and I arrived, well, a few minutes late, and she had already passed. But over the course of my time with her in her life, as it's true with pretty much everyone I meet, I can see a shimmer. I see it with my eyes. I sense it with my body, and she had it too. And she was one of those people who had extra light. Just she walks in the room, she lights it up. So she was a performer on stage. So she had enough to fill a house,
Wow. Okay.
front to back. So I walk in and she's passed away and her husband's there and he's crying and it's grieving and it's very sad and it's been a long time coming. So there's some relief too. Have done some of their grieving ahead of time, but it's still terrible. And I sit down with her and I'm talking to her husband and I'm holding her hands and I look at her and there's no more shimmer. Shimmer's gone. And I'd never noticed that before. I guess I never looked. And so I think that human beings have perception of others' souls, and that if you're attached enough to another person, you can, in the way that I have experienced little tiny bits of someone's death, or as other people I know tell stories about, they actually leave their body with the other person and travel like Lisa Jones from Maui. She runs a podcast down there. She describes her experience with one of her deceased husbands, where she left her body and went with him to heaven.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that kind of stuff happens.
With these experiences when people die and they die, they come to you later and say that their loved one visited them.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite one of those, or do you have like a really cool one where, is
Oh yeah, I got a favorite. I moved to this coastal fishing town where I was the new minister, lobsterman, coast of Maine, and within a couple of weeks, one of the lobstermen had died. And I get called over, and they're not members of the church, but they heard that I'm happy to work outside the church walls. A lot of ministers like to only work for the church. I work for everybody. And so I get this call, and I walk into their house, and all the guys are fishermen. There's all these fishermen wives. There's the old woman, the mother, and she'd been married to a lobsterman her whole life, and I'm sitting in the kitchen looking over this cove, and on the mooring outside is hanging the deceased lobster boat, swinging back and forth with his traps, and we're talking for an hour, and finally she reaches out, touches my hand, and says, "Pastor, I got to tell you something." And the guy next to me, her son, he's like, "No, ma, just don't tell him. He won't believe you." And I said, "So you'll be surprised at what I believe, and you can trust me to be confidential." And so she said, that morning she had come down the stairs. This old lobstering house. So there's a door. It's like the back stairs are super steep, like you're on a ship. And at the bottom of the stairs is a door that opens up into the kitchen. So she comes down these super steep stairs and she opens the door. She steps into the kitchen, and there at the sink, looking out the window at the cove, is her dead husband washing the dishes. And she stops in the room and she's like, does not compute. There's something wrong here. And he turns over, he hears her, he turns, he looks at her, she looks at him. She has this incredible flash of love where she is completely at peace with his passing suddenly, and she understands that she is still beloved, and that he has not ceased to love her, that he will always love her, and that he will be there for her. And she's overwhelmed. She closes her eyes and she opens them, and he's gone.
wow.
Totally, totally changed her grieving. Now, so I knew this woman going forward from that point. She still grieves, right? She's lost the love of her life,
Right.
but from that point on, she knows. She now knows that he still loves her, and so I spent the last year preaching on Sundays in little churches all over New England, itinerant, right? So somebody needs a fill-in, I go. And every church, before I preached, I did a survey. These are congregational churches, mostly a Unitarian church, an Episcopal church. And I say, so who here has ever had a dead person visit you? Someone you love. Raise your hand. And, everybody's like, nobody raises their hand. I raise my hand, and then everybody raises. They all know I'm a near-death experiencer, so they're and they'll know me. It's not like I'm coming in cold because I've been on television for 15 years in Maine, and so everybody kind of like knows me. So they trust me, and so they all raise their hands. 50% of every congregation, at least 50% of every congregation, that's upwards of 70% of every congregation, that high, a dead person had come and visited them, a loved dead one had come
Wow.
and visited them and told them telepathically, I love you, I'm well, don't you worry about me, whatever the message happens to be. And it comes in a dream, a vivid dream, or it comes in a waking situation like the fisherman's wife. Um, and then I said, so who here has ever told anybody about that? And they all raised their hands. We've all told somebody about it. So who here's ever talked about it in church? Nobody. Nobody raises their hands because everybody's afraid of their own spirituality because they're afraid of being judged. Because of the ineffable nature of the noetic knowledge, you can't communicate to somebody the depth of the feeling that occurs when it happens to you. And so it's better not to say anything at all. And so I think mystical experiences begin at that level where the individual gets a noetic understanding that's ineffable. They didn't cause it. It's short duration, but it totally changes their understanding of one little part of their faith. Or as you get further up the scale, people like Jacob Boehm or Meister Eckhart or the author of The Cloud of Unknowing, you get to a place of the unitive state of being where self vanishes and you become unified with the oneness of all. And that's of a magnitude different, but not it's qualitatively different, but not quantitatively different. So that it's they're both mystical experiences, and so would be psychedelics, and so would be near death experience. So it's all in like this arc or this trajectory or this line, um, but nobody wants to talk about it. And so I want people to talk about that thing. Tell me about the time you saw your dead loved one.
Yep, I wish, like I love that and I hate it at the same time. Like I love that that's so common, but I hate that people are so scared of it because people contact me all the time asking, they want a validation that something's real. And I have to remind them all the time, it's real, it's not your imagination. Like you need to go with it and believe it. People are so scared of being crazy or being judged, like you said.
And I think it's the judgment of being crazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, fair.
and so and I think it all came about as a result of the Age of Reason, and which is a great thing. Okay, the Age of Reason
We need
brought
both.
science, right?
Hmm.
And science it has its destructive part, okay, but overall humanity lives a lot better because we've got gray hoodies and we've got copper wires.
Yes.
Things are much better. You know I don't have to go out and kill the bison tonight for dinner and make my tent. Um, so all because of science. But we threw the baby out. Here's a terrible saying. You throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's a brutal, it's brutal. But basically, what it means is you can't see the water so dirty you can't see the baby in it, and so you throw the whole thing away. And when people threw away religion, they threw away mysticism. And mysticism is there is no religion without first a mystical experience. Moses, Abraham, Isaac, just looking in the Western tradition, Jesus. There's no religion without somebody having some sort of super transcendental thing going on there.
Very true.
And
Yep.
and but when science became dominant, people became fearful. That's one avenue. And when the evangelical churches and their rootage based in literalism denied the ongoing revelation,
Yeah.
God can't talk to you now because God ain't talking to nobody.
Right.
So which is weird because you hear all these preachers say all the time, well, God talked to me last night and asked me to send me your money so I can buy that airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's okay in that context, but
Right.
it's not okay if God sends a dead person to you.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. What would you say to someone who's trying to become more spiritual or wants to get into mysticism?
Find a practice and stick with it, because
Any
really
practice.
well, a practice that I would generally recommend a practice that's been handed down for hundreds of years, because practices that don't work don't get handed down; they get forgotten. And if something lasts for 100 years, it's got something going on there. Because so so the centering prayer practice that I fell into because of the circumstance of where I lived and grew up grew out of the Trappist tradition of Lectio Divina. It's called. It's like reflection on the text. Center TM and Zazen, all kind of mashed into the monastic life. So it has rootage, and so I find it. Well, actually, I find it very effective, but not because it has rootage, but I trusted it because it has rootage. The same with like a Kundalini yoga or a Tai Chi form. Any sort of practice that's dedicated, disciplined, and orients the mind and the breath to the heart. Those polish the lens of the inner eye and strip away like layers of onion, peeling off layers of onions to widen the channel for the light to fly through. And it weakens the ego. The ego is it's like the, it's like the, it's the thing that runs our life and the things that wants to make sure no one else does. It's like a coercively controlling mechanism that is really good at doing stuff, but don't you question it. Don't you try to eliminate it, because I'll fight back. And so I think a dedicated practice of meditation that's very simple. You follow your breath, you find a prayer, you work that prayer for the rest of your life. I say the same prayer. My chant is the same chant I've had for 40 years. And I use that same chant because it's burned in the back of my head and runs as a tape loop. And so whenever I need it, I just call it up because it's always running there. So it makes my practice easier. But really, the you can read all the books. I can't reach. I'm like looking for all my books. They're all over there somewhere. You can read all the books that you want to gather as much knowledge as you can, and you won't have any understanding unless you have a direct practice that creates communication. And it's not about asking for things, it's about quieting self and listening. So if you want spirituality, if you want to pursue the divine, get a practice and stick with it. The longer you practice it, the deeper the channel is cut, the wider the channel is cut, the more light that flows through. But that doesn't come with short practice, which is not to say that the divine can't take all of the light that it wants to and force it down your little tiny crack and pop you right open.
Yeah.
Because that happens too.
Right.
And the practice of spiritual practice prepares you and readies you for the possibility of that, by saying it's like waving a flag at God saying, here I am, notice me, I'm here. And it weakens the ego, makes the ego more penetrable, it widens the channel for more space for light, whatever kind of metaphor you want to use.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's something I've found with the more I've meditated, the I guess the more the channel gets open, but people are always looking for that fast, quick, easy fix. So there just isn't one.
Well, unless it's hallucinogens, but the hallucinogens are a fast blast,
Right.
right? And so you still haven't cut the channel. And people spend their life in contemplative prayer because it takes a lifetime of practice to open it up. That's why they do it for so long. That's why I'm after it. And I didn't come to that conclusion on my own. I read about all the great mystics and saints in the history of the world, particularly in the West, who said so. And they had these, like Teresa of Avila being levitated, and Juliana Norwich having the vision of herself as the bride of Christ, which you got to think about. Okay, it's the bride of Christ. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The consummated marriage, spiritually consummated marriage. Um, um, Practice of meditation provides opportunity for the spirit to touch you.
So, what would you say to someone who's scared of death? Or what do you tell people?
Well, I tell them, fear not. That doesn't really. It's like it's like saying, "Oh, don't feel badly, don't cry." It's like it's the same thing, and I know that, right? But I tell them, in brief, I tell them, fear not, and trust the light. And I've literally I've held people as they're dying, and whispered in their ear as they pass. Trust the light, relax, go, open your heart up, believe in the light, look for the light, don't fear not, don't be afraid of the things you've done, trust that God will catch you and love you. That's on the cusp of death.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how do I tell you, what do I say to people who are just plain old afraid of dying? Well,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the person. There was a woman I know who died a couple years ago, who I'd known for a long time, and she had ALS. And so what that meant was she was going to suffocate to death. And so vivacious, intelligent, creative, successful, any accolade you want to give her, she had it. But she was afraid. And so I spent 4 or 5 months, every couple of weeks, sitting down with her and talking to her about it. And she came to believe me. She came to trust and believe me that what I was saying was true, partly because she'd known me for 20 years and I never wavered. I never waffle. Because I don't have any faith. I don't have any belief or doubt. I know. And so um, I basically helped her make her own choice. And that's what she did. So, but for everybody else, okay, so now we're talking about people who are terminal. Let's talk about other folks who are just plain afraid of dying. Um, I'd say start to meditate, read books, watch videos on near death experience. That's a lot of people watch a lot of videos and they get kind of convinced that there's more there than they can perceive. And there's 10 million near death experiencers estimated in the United States alone, based on medical technology. And science is driving spirituality, because we're bringing back the dead. Watch those videos. Fill your head with thoughts of belief, and maybe you'll come to believe.
Yeah.
And maybe that will. I've been, like I said, I've been around a lot of death, and I've been with people who've been afraid of dying, either because they don't believe in God or because they believe in God they're going to get punished.
Right.
And so, if you can set your life up ahead of time for that moment, why not? Work on it before you get there. Then it's a lot less pressure when you get there. And so, I think about a few people I've been with whose whole life has been about belief and faith, and that at the time of their death, they're ready. They're ready to go, and their fear is gone.
Do you believe that souls can get stuck? Because you say don't be afraid of the light. Do you think people, if they refuse the light, that they get stuck? Do you believe in that?
I've had experience with that, so not really about belief for me. I am a stilt walker. I would do parades, and I made my own stilts with a friend of mine, and I had to have a certain gauge bolt that runs through the stilt on which my block is placed and through which on which my shoe is screwed. So all of my weight rides on this bolt. Well, I had to replace the bolts, and I was late for the parade. And I go to the hardware store. They get the wrong gauge, a little thin. I'm like, one parade. What could be the problem? I put them at a dude spray. Great parade. It's a great parade for me. But before I leave for the parade, I'm trying to find out where it begins because it's a new one for me. And I look up on the web, where's this parade? I get this newspaper article about this Shriner who had been in the parade 2 years before in the little go-karts, doing the tricks with the go-karts. And they're on this bridge over this narrow saltwater river between these two towns. And he hits the ramp wrong and he flips over and he cracks his head open and he dies in front of everybody. Terrible story. So I read this and I'm like, holy shit. So I get in the car, I go to the parade, I'm having this great parade, I'm on my stilts and I'm dressed as a corn stalk, and a big pumpkin thing on my back. And I get to the bridge and I'm crossing the bridge and I'm on the yellow lines and I see a couple of my neighbors, a mason and a teacher, I think she is. And so I pivot on my one foot, do this like acrobatic spin, stop, lock, move forward, take all momentum forward, and I take this one big step toward them, and now I'm 5 feet away from the railing underneath which the river is roiling. And so as I step right in front of them, I pop out of my body and my stilt breaks at the same time. My right stilt breaks, the bolt shears off, I'm falling forward. I pop out of my body. I see from an outside point of view like an amorphous gray mass push me. And I have this vision as I'm outside of me going over the edge. Like it's not like I'm watching this. It's like I'm on the inside of my body going out over the heads of my neighbors, over the railing, headed toward the river. And, I'm on stilts. I was going to drown. Just like no way I was going to not drown. And so, and then I pop back in my body again, and I designed my stilt so if the bolt sheared, I was duct taped in, but I also had sail tie so that I could slide down the stilt. If the bolt broke and the duct tape sheared, I could still be attached to the stilt and have a little bit of control and slide down and land on one foot, and lifted my leg. So I lifted my other leg, I land on one foot, I don't go over the edge. Everybody gasps. I twist my ankle because there's a block underneath. I don't land quite right. I got a little twisted ankle, and I'm like, I'm all right, everybody, I'm all right. And my buddy George, he runs over, and he's a black belt and a landscape designer and like a lacrosse player. He's like wicked buff, and he's like, Peter. We thought you were going to go in. And so his young protege had run across, ripped off his shirt, and they were both going to go in the river after me. They're like on the railing to go in to save me. So I'm embarrassed, and George is with me, and I get this huge crowd. So I pack up my stilts, and we walk back to his car, which is not far away. So he's going to drive me to my car. I get to his car. We have a conversation. I drive home. I get home, and the phone rings. And the phone is on the other end of the phone is a paramedic who just finished her doctorate at Columbia this past year. And she calls me on the phone. I had been counseling her. She had died in a bike wreck in '92, broke almost all the bones in her body, and has been suicidal. I counseled her for 2 years around suicide, but I hadn't seen her in a year. So she calls me on the phone and she says, and I haven't talked to her, Peter, what just happened? I said, what are you talking about? She says, this guy just appeared to me and said he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. He was trying. He thought you could see him.
Whoa.
And so I was like, what are you talking about? She said something about the bridge. I'm like, holy shit. And so I'd seen him. He had rushed to her to tell me that he wasn't trying to kill me. And so then he seemed to attach himself to me for weeks. He was always kind of around me. And finally, I asked her, what do I do? How do I send him home? He's stuck here. She said, just tell him to go to the light. Tell him to turn to the light and go to the light. And that's what I did. and he was gone. So believe it or not, I tell these without any evidence. Um, I just decided to tell my stories as I understand them.
I love it. It's like the more you hear stories from different people, the easier it gets to believe, or the more you start accepting it. I spent the entire Christmas holidays listening to near-death experiences, so I found you, and now I'm like, yeah, there's no way this isn't real. There's just no way. So, um, I've been on the fence about the whole, can you not go into the light? Because I feel like there's some people that have said, oh, it's just God is too powerful and too strong. You'll get sucked into the light whether you choose to or not.
I think some people do get sucked into the light, whether they choose to or not. But I also think that some people turn their back on it, and why they do that, I don't really know. Um, a ghost is just a human being without a body. It's just a soul. And so when I was growing up, I grew up outside of Boston, and was still kind of in a woodland area. And down to the woods from our house was an old Victorian house that was haunted. And we know it was haunted because I knew the family who lived there and all the crazy stories they used to tell us, about the things that happened that were out of this world. And it turned out, and then they left, and then it became like a commune when I was in college. And I knew the people in the commune, and they didn't know the people who'd been there before. They started telling stories.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I always tell people that if they don't believe in ghosts, I guess that just means you haven't experienced it yet. Once you
That's
experience
all.
it, yeah, you'll know. Because I had friends that used to make fun of me all the time because I'd watch the ghost shows and talk about ghosts, and then one day they experienced some, and now they're like, and like, now what do you think of ghosts? And they're like, well, I know what I saw.
That's it. And that's why you don't need to go beyond what you know. You just need to say what you experienced.
I like that. So I guess the last thing I'd like to ask you about, since on your YouTube channel you have a story about a time you saw a UFO. Would you want
Oh well. So yes, and something crazy happened last night about that story.
Oh wow! Awesome!
Yes,
I'm so excited.
yeah, just like I couldn't even get to sleep last night. So long. I'll start in the middle and say that I finally told the story after the United States Navy
Hmm.
produced all that material that came out 2 years ago that now is all over the web. That the U.S. Navy knows that UFOs are real. And
Yes.
if in any of your audience, you look it up for yourself. Google United States Navy UFO. You'll see the video clips shot from the jet fighters and hear their audio.
Yes.
Okay, so the
Hmm.
Pentagon knows they're real. So that's why I came out. So up until that point, I had a sworn secrecy with the people in the car. We would never tell anybody because it's talk about kooky. So not only do you have a near death experience, you've seen a UFO. I'm like, all my credibility as a professional gone.
Right.
So and last night, I'll cut to the chase. Last night, I got this a text from this woman I don't know, and she found me on the web. Must have seen the video that I produced about this UFO or something. I don't even know how she found me. She said, "So you were in a car and you were a camp counselor at Divine Word Camp in Perrysburg, Ohio, in 1977." I said, "Yes." She said, "And you had an experience in a car while you were there that summer." That's cryptic. And I was like, "Yes." She said, "And how many people were in the car with you?" I said, "Well, there were five of us all together." She said, "Do either of these two names, Johnny and Tony, with their last names, mean anything to you?" I'm like, "It's 40 years ago, man. I don't know. I'd like to say yes, but I can't because I don't know." And so we hem and we haw around this, and she puts me in touch with Tony. And lo and behold, last night, from 1977 until last night, I was not in touch with the guys who were in the car with me. And now Tony was in the car with me. Now I know. So we're going to talk tomorrow. But
Wow.
but I knew it was him for two reasons. Because that summer we swore to each other we would not tell anybody because it's crazy. Who's going to believe us? And so we had this pact. He knew about the pact. And then I knew that he didn't tell his girlfriend because he told me that summer, that he couldn't even tell his girlfriend, this woman he's in love with, because he was afraid that she wouldn't believe him. And that's what he told me last night. Oh, you remember how they? I was like, yeah. So here's what happened. I was a rifle instructor at this summer camp, horses and boats and riflery, archery, all that stuff. And because I was the rifle instructor, I was trusted because I had a dangerous weapon. I've proven myself responsible, but I wasn't really 100% because we borrowed the camp car to go roller skating one week. And once we established that as what we were going to do, the next week we went out and we bought beer, and we had a little bit of cannabis with us, and we drove up to this isolated parking lot above this river, and we put on like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young on the cassette deck. There was a portable that was mine, and and I'm driving the car, and we put on the tape, and the guys in the back pop the beers, and I'm just about to light the bowl, and suddenly and it's pitch black. The entire parking lot is suddenly illuminated like daylight, and I'm like, oh man, and we're all shocked. We're like, it's the cops. We're busted. We have to give ourselves. We're all Catholic. It's a Catholic camp, so we're all Catholic schoolboys. All go to Catholic private schools. All of us. And so we're like, oh, we're gonna be responsible, and we're in trouble. So the best thing we do is give ourselves up. So we all open the doors, we all get out of the car, and it's totally bright, like white light. And when I look behind the car, everybody turns around, looks behind the car where we think the cop's going to be, but there's no cop behind us, and there's no light coming from there. We all kind of like figure out that the light's coming from above us, and so we all look up. And at just above treetop level, the entire sky, almost as far as we can see, is one white flat disc. And I'm looking up like this, and I got to go like this to see far out to the edge where I could see the starlight. It's just like quite a distance away, and we're like, what is this? We're about 18 years old, and it's completely silent. There's no noise whatsoever. There's no birds chirping. There's nothing. It's completely silent, and it just starts to drift off. And it goes down. We're up on a bluff above the river, and this is Ohio. It's pretty flat, so it drifts down at treetop level, and we're like, get in the car, get in the car. So we all get in the car, turn the car around, drive down the hill. The one curvy road is down this hill in the whole state of Ohio. It's like right down this. So we curve down this hill, and it's getting away from us. And as we turn the corner, we slow down. I'm like, throw all the beer out. Everybody throws the beer out. Everybody throws the weed out. The bong goes out. Everything gets thrown out. And so now we're flooring, and I've floored it, and we're following behind this, and it's maybe, I don't know, 100 yards ahead of us, not even that, 75 yards ahead of us, treetop level, cruising. We're doing 86 miles an hour as we blow through the center of camp. So the camp's divided on two sides of this road, and I'm like, uh-oh, someone's going to see us, but it's like 2 a.m. or whatever it was. And now we're doing like 90 miles an hour, and we get to a road that is the river bridge to the town, and it's a right angle road, and we're doing like 90, and it made a right angle turn and never decelerated. It didn't like an arc. It was going 90 here and then 90 there, and it went, and I stopped my hand like that. It never stopped. And so it was like, we're like, what? So I slammed on the brakes. There was a big cornfield to the left, off the embankment, like an airborne, and stupid 18-year-old, into the cornfield. I floor it because it's soft dirt, and this corn might be, it might be 2 feet high. All right, so it's not huge corn. And so we slide to this fishtail. I've got it pinned, got the pedal down, it's pinned. We're doing this fishtail, trying to line the car up with the road again. We line the car up, and we start going forward, up over the embankment and onto the pavement. Boom, boom, boom. And we're all hanging out the window looking ahead, and a quarter mile ahead of us on this straight flat road, there it is, twice the height of the trees. So it's sitting right up there waiting for us, totally still, like no visible propulsion. Like, okay, no visible propulsion, and no sound, just sitting there. And as we get to it, it becomes like a streak of light. and it's up out of the atmosphere and gone. It left like like a contrail out of a jet. It's a streak of, and it was the fastest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so we slam on the brakes and we pull over and we're like looking around and we're trying to find it in the sky. We can't see it. And and we pulled out the corn stalks that were all jammed inside underneath the car. And we swore to each other that we'd never tell anybody until last night. So tomorrow I'm going to talk to Tony.
Wow. That's
So
incredible.
now, why do we think that we're alone?
Right. How do you feel how does that fit into spirituality for you? Like, do you think God just has created all these different beings and we all get to go to heaven, or we all get to go to I don't know, we all become oneness? Like, how do you piece it all together?
I think that everything in the universe is made out of love, smaller than the quantum level. I'm a panentheist. Like if I was going to give myself a name theologically, a panentheist is someone who thinks that God pervades all things in the universe. Every little thing in the universe is made out of the divine, and that the divine is also above and more powerful than the universe. And so everything is made out of love. Everything there is, and love is this eternal nature of the being who's incomprehensible, and that includes puppy dogs and snails and whatever sentient beings there are from other planets wherever they are, because the whole universe is made out of the same stuff. But I think that in terms of religion, uh, I think that in the Western culture we have this misunderstanding based in Genesis that we are the most important. Humans are number one.
Right.
We name everything. This planet is ours. We do with it what we want. Only it turns out that maybe we're not the best or the smartest or the most advanced.
What?
And yeah, so no longer is the Earth the center of the universe. And the sun revolves around us. Humanity is not the center of all creation, and that gets into the whole end times, the end of the world. Time is not going to frickin' end. It's 13 billion years old. An asteroid might hit us. We might nuke ourselves. Humanity might end.
Right.
Or our understanding of what culture is up until this point might end, but time is not going to frickin' end. Not any way we can conceive of. So if that, it also takes away from our specialness. Our time's going to end. That makes us special.
Right.
Makes us, we're not that special. We're just not. How freeing.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love it. Yeah, right there with you on all of those things. Well, I guess one last thing with that. So when I was first having my losing my religion aspect, I started going, okay, if evolution is real and we've started off as single cell organisms and we've made it our way, and, we're apes and then we become humans. At what point did the soul evolve? But would you just say the soul always has existed because it's all love, right? So
So I've seen soul inside of chickadees. Black-capped chickadees are a bird in the Northeast, and I've seen the same light inside the chickadee that I see inside human beings. Literally the same light.
okay.
I don't think the soul evolved. I think the soul always was. And also, we're a mix of Denisovans and Neanderthal and Florensis and Homo sapien, and we didn't just evolve in a linear fashion. As anthropology and archaeology dig into the past, we gain a better understanding of our own evolution. Yes, we were apes, but the link between that and who we are today, there's a lot of other things that happened between now and then. And I don't know if you come across the stoned ape theory.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
For those of your audience, has to do with natural forms of psychedelics available in the environment and abstract thinking.
Yeah, that's how our brains expanded so quickly over a short period of time, and we became who we are, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. All right. Well, that was perfect. Lovely. I guess you answered all my questions, and it was awesome talking to you. I know you do. I don't know if you still do. You do counseling for people that or want to do mysticism or went into mysticism. Like, what would you?
Yes, for mystics and near-death experiencers and people who are spiritual on a spiritual path. I help people figure out a little more understanding about where they are, what they're doing, and I've been doing that for a long time.
And if people are interested in that, they would just go to your website.
PeterPanagore.love.
I'll say again, it's like your book. It was really great. There's so much more that we didn't go through, and it needs to be a movie. There's so many different aspects. You had multiple near-death experiences, so
fingers crossed on that movie thing. That's more than just a real possibility at the moment.
good. It felt that way because I can still, my palms still get sweaty even thinking about the book. So there's definitely something real, or not real, something definitely very uh, strikes at your emotions. Really gets to you. It really makes you feel. So thank you for that. I really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
saying that. Thank you for saying that.
My pleasure. All right. Well, Peter, beautiful talking with you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Alan, very much for spending your time with me. And thanks